The President and everybody here at the White House stand solidly behind all of the men and women of the Secret Service, including the Director of the Secret Service.
Over the last several days, we've seen recent and accumulating reports raising questions about the performance of the agency, and the President concluded that new leadership of that agency was required.
I think they underestimated what had been taking place in Syria.
How could anybody miss this that's paying any attention at all? Senator McCain and I said in October of 2013, watch out for ISIS.
In the unlikely event that someone with Ebola does reach our shores, we've taken new measures so that we're prepared here at home.
Today we learned that some school-age children have been identified as having had contact with the patient and are now being monitored at home for any signs of the disease.
There are a lot of things going on all at the same time. Secret Service Director resigns today after a series of failures. The first Ebola case in the U.S., the ISIS threat, the terrorism threat, things happening in Iraq, Afghanistan, and across the country. There is a feeling about that. Today, by the way, is former President Jimmy Carter's 90th birthday. 35 years, 2 months and a couple of weeks ago, he gave this speech from the White House.
The threat is nearly invisible in ordinary ways. It is a crisis of confidence. It is a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. We can see this crisis in the growing doubt about the meaning of our own lives and in the loss of a unity of purpose for our nation.
Crisis of confidence speech evolved to be called the malaise speech. What is happening in the U.S. now? Is there a feeling about security and concern that possibly affects the elections? Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles.
Well, I don't think it's a malaise sense in the country at all. I think it is a sense in the country that we have a presidency that is falling apart. And it isn't as if it all happened at once. President comes in with a great vision, expanding government. Government's going to solve a lot of problems. And withdrawal at home. If you say nice things in Cairo, you say we want an outstretched hand, we're going to eliminate all the blunders that the previous administration had made. Things will get better abroad. Now it takes years until the consequences of that are seen. Abroad, in the vacuum that we created by Obama's retreat, more aggressive, more wicked. In fact, some of the worst people on earth have filled it in Libya, Syria, Iraq. Putin's on the march in Eastern Europe. Everybody senses America is not there. Our allies are very worried about the kind of support they're going to get. So that's a consequence of the policy. And domestically, the great idea of the expansion of government, the new entitlements, and all this, it's the crisis of competence. IRS, the VA, the Secret Service, all the institutions that in the past you'd make a movie about. Secret Service agent is the hero, the epidemiologist is the hero. All of these agencies that we had trust in under this administration are showing how badly government is run. You combine them and you get a sense that things are out of control.
Mara, today with the Secret Service Director resigning, that kind of capped what has been a pretty bad few weeks.
Yeah, it's been a bad few weeks, and the voters, as they have for quite some time, think the country's on the wrong track, kind of by 2-1. That's true. However, the Secret Service problems predated President Obama, and so far they haven't been turned into a political indictment of him. So far, although there was a Republican congressman who said at the hearings, as hard as it is for me to say this president and family deserve to be protected, but I would say that there's true outrage that the presidency of the United States, the president and his family, wasn't protected. And I actually think that the sense that the world is on fire, you know, the things are falling apart, Ukraine, ISIS, Ebola, that was what was consuming the presidency for a number of weeks. I would say that things have actually gotten a little more stable. First of all, we have one case in the United States. We don't know if it's going to be an epidemic here, and we don't think so. ISIS is now being attacked as opposed to a growing threat where the president stands up and says we don't have a strategy yet. His approval ratings have actually ticked up a little bit recently, and it's because he took action against ISIS.
A couple points in different polls. We have a couple of polls new out tonight. Fox poll number 4, does the Obama administration have a clear strategy for defeating ISIS? Yes, 26%, no, 64%. Is the Obama administration on radical Muslim extremists, how do they stand? Not tough enough, 74%. And then the job performance on a host of issues. There you see approval, disapproval. And on the foreign policy front, obviously taking a hit with Syria there. Steve.
Yeah, he's in a very bad spot. Mara's right. I mean, if you look at the Gallup daily tracking poll, look at where he was 2 weeks ago compared to where he is now.
After the speech he gave.
He's up a little bit. Right. But certainly, when you look at this broad set of issues that we're talking about, a lot of it reflects poorly on the president. Some of it doesn't. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say President Obama is responsible for the Ebola crisis. It adds to the sense that things are out of control,
like
but it's not Barack Obama.
Yeah. The overall sense that that potentially security moms that who have played in elections past may feel this angst about what the world is doing.
I think the political damage comes from what Charles identified. Remember, when Barack Obama came into office, on his first day, he issued an executive order in which he said his goal, his objective, was to restore faith in government, because without restored faith in government, he couldn't implement the kinds of changes that he wanted to make. And he was also very clear before he was elected and then again in running for re-election in 2012 that he wanted to be a transformative president, that he wanted to do big things, that he wanted to change the attitude of Americans toward their government, make them believe in activist government again. Not only has he failed at that, we have seen a dramatic erosion in faith in government. And it's not just the things that Charles mentioned. I mean, it's IRS, it's Benghazi, it's VA, it's the immigration debacle over the summer, many of these things which have happened in the second term. And then, of course, you can't forget Obamacare, which I think is this rolling disaster, and we're still seeing and likely to see more dramatic effects from.
Quickly, Charles, no one expects the president to give a Jimmy Carter crisis of confidence speech about all of the things collectively together. But there is a sense that what has been said at times by this White House, by this president, have not turned out to be accurate in a number of cases. I mean, just today, the president has complete confidence in the Secret Service director, and then 6 hours later, he accepts a resignation because it's a string of incidents.
Well, obviously nothing happened in the interim, so this is clearly a blunder, and an obvious stupid blunder. It's the kind that you'd make if you were president of a student council. You endorse her in the morning, you fire her in the afternoon. But it isn't sort of stuff like Ebola that obviously is outside the president's control. It's the fact that you get a beheading of an American in the United States, and then you get the FBI and others calling it workplace violence, when every sentient adult knows this is an act of terror. It's the idea that the administration will deny things that it doesn't want to see, the same way Obama denied and neglected the ISIS threat because it contradicted his narrative of the tide of war is receding. And it isn't an excuse to say a lot of this stuff predated his presidency. You can say that in year 1 and 2. This is year 6, the end of year 6. At that point, you are responsible, even if you inherited a problem or two, particularly if you are the party of government, of fixing stuff. And obviously, stuff has gotten worse.
Next up, an issue the White House likes to tout that they say is going their way, the economy. We'll talk about that with the panel after a quick break.